Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to bring you SEC baseball power rankings following the first weekend's games. And here's how we're going to do it. We have sort of impressions of what we thought teams might be coming into the season, which carries a lot of weight. But we also had questions about some of these teams, and maybe sometimes we answered some of these in week one. Maybe sometimes we didn't, but just gut feelings. So if you want to yell at us, you can, but that's how we're rolling. We're going to start from the bottom, and I feel bad here because I've got Kentucky at 14. The Cats went to Elon, gave up 3 runs the whole weekend, which is phenomenal, anywhere, anytime. The problem for the Cats is they only scored 9 runs. Lineup is almost entirely new, so I really don't know what to make of the Cats just yet, and I sort of have Kentucky by default at 14 because of that. I think if the lineup had scored a few more runs, I might have moved the Cats up. But look, I think there might be 14 pretty good teams in the league this year. These are going to change often. And just for lack of a better idea, because I had to do stuff with other teams too, I have Kentucky 14th. But I actually left the weekend feeling better about Kentucky because of what it did on the mound than I did going in.
Somebody's got to be 1 through 14, right? And
yeah,
like you said, it's just you got to put a team somewhere, and Kentucky was probably the furthest back to start the season, and maybe you haven't just completely drastically changed your opinion of them through the first 3 games, so maybe no reason to really move them up above the other teams at this point.
Yeah. Okay, the next 2 teams are sort of the same thing here. I've got Georgia 13, Mississippi State 12. I think both these teams have pretty good lineups. Georgia is old. They've got a lot of the same guys back, and I like that. I called Georgia, I think at one point, maybe a sleeper team to keep an idea on, but I was concerned about Georgia's pitching. I left the weekend with that same concern, and same with State, which had some bullpen issues this weekend, but also scored 33 runs. So I want to see both these teams get it straight on the mound before I move them up any further. Blake, your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, we talked about Mississippi State, like you said, it's sort of the flashback in the VMI series for the Saturday game. Give up 14 runs. Talked about just the issues there, and so I think again it's justified, right? Because I just said you're doing these after 3 games, which in the scope of a baseball season, that's not a lot, and so you kind of have to continue to factor in what you thought coming into the season, but you can also find a few things to pick apart early in the season. So yeah, I think for people looking maybe just at the Mississippi State side of that equation, I think that's something we talked about kind of in the reaction video. So
I've got Missouri at 11. And if I didn't have anything else to go on other than first weekend's results, I would have had Missouri higher. I did get a chance to watch the Tigers a lot this past weekend. Was really impressed. And again, Missouri was one of about 4 or 5 teams in the league that really played good competition. So we are comparing teams that played good teams with teams that for the most part did not. Missouri scored 19 runs, gave up 18 in 3 games between TCU and Oklahoma State and Texas, which I don't think is very good at this point. But in any case, if you can go 2-1 and hold your own against 3 teams that are basically powerhouses in the Big 12, then I was very pleasantly surprised with what Missouri has done. Now, look, Missouri, you got to acknowledge the history. It has not been to the NCAA tournament since Missouri has been in the league. Preseason expectations, I think everybody had Missouri at the bottom. You got to factor that in too. And so that's kind of where I settled on this team, for lack of a better idea. I haven't seen a lot of things I really liked, but I'm a little hesitant based on history for Missouri. We will see how that plays out, but I think it's going to be a lot more interesting than I would have thought a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, for fear of repeating myself, yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the reaction video. Just Missouri just getting 2 wins. Everyone thought going into it they were going to go 0-3 and said, "Oh boy, good luck to Missouri." But it didn't happen. And as I said, outside of one bad inning against Oklahoma State in the second, where they gave up 5 runs, really played pretty well. So yeah, to come out of that 2-1, that certainly exceeded expectations.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we got Auburn at 10 for really lack of a better idea. Auburn beat Indiana 2-1, but scored 16, gave up 16. Indiana, I think, is an okay team. I don't know if it's a regional team. Again, a lot of where a team is the team, but it's having to do something with the other teams. Butch Thompson's teams always seem to beat expectations and always keep that in mind. But given what some of the teams did in front of Auburn, and given where perception was on some of the other teams compared to Auburn going into the season, I feel pretty comfortable having Auburn at 10 right now, but that could change based on history.
Yep, got a pretty fun series ahead of them, right? Go out west, play USC in LA this weekend. So, yeah, that could be kind of fun to see how that unfolds there. So,
Okay, at 9 is South Carolina. South Carolina put up 49 runs and gave up 5 this weekend. The plus 44 run margin is the highest in the league so far. It was against UMass Lowell, which means almost nothing. I would also say a lot of other SEC teams played bottom feeders this weekend too. So you saw some lopsided scores because of crummy opposition. But I go back to what I said, preseason expectations. We all knew Will Sanders and that pitching staff would be good. Now, with Carolina didn't hit much against anybody a year ago. Carolina hit the daylights out of the ball this weekend. And so I don't think scoring 49 runs against UMass Lowell is a predictor of lead the league in runs, but you do sometimes see bad offenses struggle even against bad pitching staffs. And Carolina didn't do that. I think this is about where most people had Carolina preseason pretty close, but I thought, look, you took care of business, did the Gamecocks, and 9 is where I feel comfortable putting Carolina for the time being.
yeah, you can say that they played this team or that team, but like it's still got to count for something, right? Because that's what we're doing here. We're
Right.
doing the power rankings through 3 games, and it's still got to mean something that they put up that many runs, no matter the competition. So, yeah, I think I would always keep that in mind. We could say, well, they did
Yeah.
it against this team. Well, but they did it, so it has to mean something, right? So,
Yeah. Well, Mark Kingston addressed the lineup with transfers, and some of those kids hit over the weekend. And anyway, that's where I go. And I've got the next team in the same vein, a team that people, you could see them ranked in the bottom half of some top 25s. I think D1 had Alabama preseason at number 20. I think I look at teams that are due to pop and exceed expectations. You look at that lineup, man. It's guys that have been in Alabama for a while. The pitching was highly touted. That came through this weekend. Alabama gave up 5 runs. I think Alabama is a really solid number 8 right now.
yeah, we kind of, I don't know, sleeper team's the right word, but we did kind of label them that and said kind of coming into the season, that's a team to certainly circle and see if they can fit into that mold. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's justified, like you said. Experience is the main thing with Alabama, and for some other teams that we talked about that are adding a lot of new faces or adding some maybe a lot of young guys in to the lineup or the rotation, and having experience matters. And I think for Alabama that may be something when they get into some of these series deeper into the season, they can lean on that a little bit to maybe pull out a win here or there when needed. So
Okay, these next 2 teams both played the same competition over the weekend. Both of them scored 27 runs. Arkansas gave up 21. Vanderbilt gave up 22. So they were right there next to each other in a lot of the preseason polls. For lack of a better idea, I put Vandy at 7 and Arkansas at 6 based on a 1-run differential. They're very much alike. Now, you could say that Arkansas lost Jax Wiggins, which it did, and I think that's going to ding the Razorbacks some. But again, they didn't have him this weekend. That's how the scores turned out. I think these 2 teams are very even. Both did about what was expected of them this weekend. I think you would have guessed 2-1 for each team. And so I go Arkansas 6, Vandy 7, but both teams had to be very pleased with what they did in Arlington this weekend with 2 wins and 1 loss against 3 pretty good Big 12 teams or 2 pretty good Big 12 teams and whatever Texas winds up being.
yeah, like we said in the other video, I think you learn a lot more about Vanderbilt this week, right? Because they play UCLA, and that's that's a fun early season test after already having 3 of those to start the year. But it just in a playing one team and a one series versus just playing a different team every night and how the pitching looks and those kind of things we talked about before. I think that will be the most intriguing aspect for Vanderbilt here this weekend.
Okay, defending national champ Ole Miss at 5, which is about where Ole Miss probably would have been in these preseason. I don't know what you tell about a 3-0 sweep of Delaware with a 35-6 composite score. Ole Miss's pitching was a little bit of the question. The newcomers did pretty well, but it's Delaware. Ole Miss at 5. I could see the Rebels moving up, but it's Delaware.
No, you're still the defending national champion until you're not, right? So, hey, that's it's Delaware, like you said, but it does have to count for something, and they've got Maryland coming up this week, so that's another kind of fun, interesting sort of matchup. So there's good ones that I think that could be a lot of fun this week, and Ole Miss has one of those that, yeah, I mean it's like we said, these are power rankings after 3 games. You can only say so much, and only have a hard stance on this team should be here or there so much after 3 games.
Okay, Tennessee at number 4. I think it's clear that the Vols' offensive losses took a toll this weekend. Tennessee scored 11 runs, 7 of those coming against UC San Diego. I think it's also clear Tennessee's going to pitch really well, which is why I didn't feel comfortable dropping the Vols below 4, despite Tennessee being the lone team that's below 500 in the league right now. We'll wait and see. I know they've got the Ahuna deal where the shortstop's out, pending whatever the NCAA is or isn't going to do there. Griffin Merritt joined the lineup over the weekend for the 3rd game, so he's back. That's going to help them. I think Tennessee's pitching is going to be really good, but the bats are where, look, you lose all the guys they lost. Beck, Gilbert, Lipsius, Trey Lipscomb, go on and on. That's going to leave a mark, and it could take the Vols a little bit of time to get over that. But in the meantime, Tennessee's got starting pitching, probably the best in the country. It's got pitching depth, and that's where we've got them slotted this week.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be an adjustment period. I think if you didn't think that, you're probably being a little unrealistic just because of everything they lost, and kind of talked about that in the season preview. It is going to be different, but they still got the pitching, and that can still carry them a long way, and the bats will pick up. It's just, again, you're not expecting the same thing you saw last year. You just have to keep it in that context, and I think it's understandable why maybe a little bit early on you could see them again in sort of an adjustment phase before they get to SEC play.
Number 3, I've got Texas A&M. I don't know what you make from a 3-game sweep of Seattle. Run differential on that one, plus 21 for the weekend. I think the Aggies pitching was pretty good. The lineup's going to hit, as we know. Jace LaViolette was really good this weekend. I may have butchered the last name. I apologize if I did. One of their newcomer hitters. A&M finished in Omaha a year ago, was expected to be a top 5 club by a lot of people, and I didn't see a lot of reason to move the Aggies out of the range that they were in to start.
Yep. The ultimate, don't move them unless you have to move them. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Like, there's no reason to move them down after what they did through the first 3 games. So, yeah, still high expectations for Texas A&M this season, and I would be surprised if they're moving down much more anytime soon. Although they do have, what is it, next weekend? They've got the Shriners Classic that's in Houston, right? Where they got Louisville, Texas Tech, and Rice, I think, are the 3 teams they'll play. So, yeah, maybe learn a little bit more about A&M once we get to that.
Florida scored a 3-game sweep of Charleston Southern. Composite scored 37-5. Florida's pitching was outstanding. Its hitting was what we felt it would be. Florida, to me, right now looks like the best team in the East. That could change. Probably will at points of the season, but I love this team starting pitching. It's got some bats who are back that it can hit. I just think Florida right now looks like the most solid team. Fewest questions on offense and defense and pitching of any of them right now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, pitching can carry a long way, but they also have a lot of strengths elsewhere. And yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, once again, we're talking about 3 game sample size here, but the expectations for Florida are very high coming in. And if you assume that Tennessee is going to have to maybe adjust a little bit here early on, I think it's understandable why Florida moves up, into that top range there as the team in the East. So
Okay, this might have been the only easy pick for the countdown. It's LSU at 1, Tigers preseason number 1. A sweep this weekend by a margin of 24-5. LSU's pitching, which was the huge question last year, was great this weekend. We know the lineup's going to hit with or without Tommy White, and they missed him most of the weekend. There really just wasn't any place you could put LSU other than 1, and so that's where we settled.
yes, and you said the exact phrase. Where else do you put LSU other than number 1 right now? Because that was the expectation coming into the season, and there's no reason to change that at this point. They still, yeah, I mean, they're, like I said, you only got 3 games, but they are built like the number 1 team in the country, and I think it is understandable why they are still there, because there was just really not a reason to move them anywhere else. And yeah, so they've got fun upcoming schedule. Of course, we talked about that in the previous video. Round Rock Classic this weekend, Kansas State, Iowa, Sam Houston State. Then they go to Texas next Tuesday. So yeah, kind of a fun stretch coming up here for the number 1 team.
Parting thoughts.
A lot more to come, baseball wise. Hit that subscribe button to get it all sent to you. You can turn on notifications and get notified for everything that we put up here on the channel, which is not just SEC baseball. We of course do football and basketball as well. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we appreciate the support.
All right, he's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. A ton of stuff coming up. We're rolling out football videos. We're doing basketball wall to wall, and we're going to do the same with baseball. So, best way to catch that, hit the subscribe button. It costs you nothing. Hit the like button. That helps us out. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 14.